Oh. Hello, everyone. No! Man, I love my cat, but cats are so annoying sometimes. I feel like you can't have things in a house with a cat unless you've got them bolted down. I love cats, but they really are. They are like the most annoying pet that people regularly keep in their homes. Every other animal has a greater sense of... I feel like every other animal has a greater sense of like the things that they're doing. A cat only cares to avoid turning something over if they think that it's going to endanger them or like bring a predator or whatever. Like, they won't do it for your sake. And do you not need sleep, woman? I actually just woke up, if you can believe it. I might go back to sleep, but I didn't sleep much yesterday at all. After I got off stream, I slept for maybe 2 hours before I had to wake up and, right back into parenting mode. Tonight, I kind of fell asleep with him, and I didn't really wake up until like 3, so I've already slept close to 5 hours within the last, 7 or 8 hours, so I'll probably go back to sleep for a little while after I get done streaming. At least take a little bit of a nap or something, but I'm actually feeling more refreshed today than I have in a few days. Hello, Margot. Oh. It's assuming your cat has access to the one brain cell. True. I don't know if she ever gets access. Silent night, holy night, all is soft, all is quiet, on virgin mother and child. Hello, Misty. Hello, Raleigh. Hello, everyone. Something I was just wondering. In The Hateful Eight, the movie makes it seem like you can tell in one of the shots that the coffee is being spiked. But every time I rewatch that movie, I try and keep that in mind, and I never end up catching it. Finally got my train tickets today for the Seattle meetup. I know that you're smoking weed off frame, but my head canon makes it cocaine. Well, that's the great thing about smoking off camera, is that you can pretty much believe whatever you want about it. What can I do to change it? I can't disprove it unless I, smoke on camera, which I try not to do. Hello, Matt. You Stram, how we feeling tonight? I mean, could be better. Could be worse. I guess I'm feeling more drained than anything. Smoking is a bad habit. I know. Trust me, I know. Hello. Hello, Riley. So yeah, what do you guys want to talk about? Did you guys notice that Donald Trump finally found the how do I put it? The non-incestuous stand-in for his daughter that he's always wanted? I didn't care much about this Natalie Harp story because at first I kind of just thought it was another... Like, I don't think that this is most of what happens to the president, but I do think that every so often a story comes out that is literally just Democratic operatives and DNC people trying desperately to find one angle by which the American people will condemn Donald Trump. The irony being, of course, that most Americans already condemn Donald Trump if they're not already, if they're not in his team. Most of us are already kind of, most of us are already opposed to Trump. Most Americans didn't know anything about his policy. But there's always this kind of like ongoing wistful attempt that the DNC will, convince the rest of America to feel the same way. And so at first I didn't really care much about the story because it just seemed like more of that kind of thing. But the more I've looked into it, the more people start talking about it, the more I've started to realize this isn't just one of the many stories that's come out over the years where the DNC is trying to get people to understand what a shitbag Trump is. This isn't just that. There might be a little smoke behind this fire. So as it turns out, Natalie Harp looks, at this point, basically just like Ivanka Trump. And now, if you don't remember, Ivanka Trump is Donald Trump's daughter, and the same person that Donald Trump has said incredibly creepy, borderline incestuous things about for the pretty much entirety of his presidency. And even before. For pretty much the entirety of her life, really. And the wonder there, and the implication there has always been that if Donald Trump is not himself a little incestuous by nature, then he at the very least has those habits. And I always kind of thought, this might just be one of those weird Freudian things where, yes, technically, we're all accurate in describing him as having a fetish for his daughter, but he might not even realize it. And I guess that might still be the case, but it's starting to seem less and less likely now that it's not just him saying creepy things that could, that you pretty much have to take that way even without greater context. I don't know, dude. It's so gross to me how low the American people are willing to let their standards go for a Republican. Not to say Barack Obama was some kind of wonderful president, but just imagine if Barack Obama had ever lusted after his daughters the way Donald Trump lusts after his own. The continued destruction of our personal freedoms and the degradation of American institutions. Let's talk about that then. Let's do it. I'm ready. And we're going to do something we don't normally do tonight. Because I want to see if this woodwick candle makes it any more possible. Or makes it easier, I should say. I feel like I had to mine that thing out of there. Okay. Wow. That is horrible. You guys can't see me at all. Does it get any better if I move up a little bit? Not really. No. I mean, it kind of looks like I'm in the firelight. There we go. That's better. That might give some people flickering, though. I don't want to give anybody epilepsy. Who has marshmallows? I know, right? Well, what do you say? I tell you what, if someone wants to donate $20 or more, Super Chat, Cash App, membership donos, whatever, we'll do campfire mode stream. And I'll turn all the lights off and we'll just use this candle. Because it does produce enough light, it's just kind of flickery light, and I worry about people having an epileptic episode or something. In most people's minds, the worst thing you could be is a pedo, but if you're the president and there's loads of evidence you're a pedo protector at best, there's no need to rush that investigation. Well, I think that reveals kind of a deep internal hypocrisy in human beings. And I don't know how to talk about it in a super concise way, but people, for some reason, are willing to accept a much higher degree of corruption and moral ineptitude and failing out of, ironically, their leaders and politicians than they are out of their everyday friends and relatives. And I do not understand that at all. And I don't think it's an old school phenomenon. I don't think it's intrinsically related to human nature. In fact, I don't think we used to be that way. I feel like a big, coping mechanism that everyday working class people used to rely on was, well, the people in my area may suck, but at least the people running the country kind of halfway know what they're doing. And now we don't even have that. Now we know for a fact that the people running the country, not only do they not know halfway what they're doing, they don't know a third of the way what they're doing, an eighth of the way what they're doing. They've had no fucking clue whatsoever. They're just as clueless as the rest of us. Never seen a candle where the wick is sideways? Well, these are super expensive candles. Like this one was $30. But yeah, the idea behind this candle is to give you an experience that mimics a fireplace. They're called woodwick candles. America in 2026 will blow our minds in 2016, yeah. I think, pre-Trump America bears only the most tepid resemblance to post-Trump America. Phoebe, do you think if reps knew the future and what was going to happen with Trump, that they still vote for him? No. But that just might be my wishful thinking, honestly. Part of me has to believe that the reason why so many Republicans, both at a ground level and at higher governmental levels, are supporting the Trump regime and their actions, both domestically and abroad, is because they are genuinely convinced, for reasons that are universally pretty terrible, that either the rapture is going to happen very soon, or that everybody in the liberal media is lying to them. The liberal media, by the way, just being anyone who disagrees with them. And I think a lot of people genuinely don't know what's going on as a result. How can you expect people to know what's going on if you have a broad plethora of information available to them, but you also let it be completely legal for people at the very top of these media and political movements to just lie? To knowingly lie. Fucking Tucker Carlson has talked about it openly. My favorite Tucker Carlson quote? Well, yeah, I lie. I've lied on television. I try my very best not to lie. But if I'm cornered, or a question is too difficult, I'll lie. Tucker Carlson. So if Tucker Carlson, the man who basically owns the mainstream news media in terms of like someone who was big in that space for a really long time, the most well-known name in that space for a long time. So if King mainstream media is literally admitting that he lies on TV for fun and profit, you know that that goes all the way down. What's up, Lindsay? I think earlier today on the DFF stream, someone jokingly asked if leftists were going to make reps pay for what they allowed to happen. TJ said leftists were too much of pushovers and pussies. Do you think that's true? No. I laughed when TJ said that. I joked. But no, I don't agree with him. But I do agree with him saying it. I don't agree with the sentiment, but it's one of those rare instances where I actually do agree with people saying that. Because, and I feel the same way about electoral politics too. In situations like this, it's better to think that you're not going to do anything because that will inspire you to action in a way that thinking that everybody's doing something is not. Right? Like if you get the perception, this happened with 2016 too. One of the reasons why Hillary Clinton lost was because everybody thought she was going to win. Literally, look into it. One of the reasons why she lost was because of how many people were convinced she was going to win. So tons and tons of people that might have voted if they thought the stakes were a lot higher and they thought Trump was more of a real risk. There are tons of people that ended up voting for Trump because they thought it was a Trump, like a joke vote, not really a serious candidate, but just like, you know, what other opportunity am I going to get in my lifetime to vote for Donald Trump, you know? Little did they know, they're going to get at least 3 opportunities so far. But I think there's lots of people who didn't vote for Hillary that probably would have if they had perceived Trump as a realistic danger that was likely to take the presidency. Because they didn't, because there was this perception going around in the lead up to the election in 2016. There were literally polls 95-5 Hillary to Trump. Can you believe that shit? Looking at how it actually turned out, where the country was pretty much evenly split down the middle. Huh? 95-5? That was fantasy land. That was fantasizing, electoral fantasy. But I think that this is a similar situation. I think that TJ is right to say that the left is a bunch of pussies. I think TJ is right to say that we're not going to do shit about it, because I think that that might incense some people into doing something about it. Yeah, I mean, honestly, if I had to give an honest assessment, I would say the radical left in America tries our best to be effective, and sometimes we are. We're always trying to do shit. We just usually end up getting arrested or fucked with for it. But the broader left in America, I don't know. I can't think of a time in my lifetime where the broader American left has meaningfully ever had any political power. Now, there are times in previous people's lifetimes. Franklin Delano Roosevelt is an example of actual progressives winning some actual political power. One could argue JFK might have been kind of the same thing. One could argue that that Johnson maybe was the same kind of thing, but you can definitely 100% make that argument for Franklin Delano Roosevelt. But that's 60 years before I was born. Someone born at the height of the New Deal would have been 60 years old when I was born. The radical left is why I'm one interaction from LWAP, LOL. I don't know what LWAP is. Motherfucker, I'm old. Not really, but I'm starting to feel old with all these Zoomer phrases and new terminology it's people coming up with. Nah, dude, like, listen, I don't know all this stuff. You're gonna have to tippy type it out like a real person. leave without pay? That can't be what they mean. That's too innocuous. Who cares if you go leave without pay? What the fuck? What, huh? Do you ever change your shirt, Smelly? Yeah, when it starts to stinking. No, I don't know. Like, I'll change a shirt when I have actually, like, done something in it that needs changing, but, like, I've pretty much been inside for, like, most of the last 2 days, so I haven't really done that much to get this shirt sweaty. Maybe I should have changed it this morning, though, because I did do dishes and laundry yesterday, which is probably more stress than I would normally wear a shirt through without changing afterwards, but it is what it is. Whatever, man. If you want to be mad at the radical left, go ahead. I would just ask you a time in America's history where the radical left has ever had meaningful mainstream political power. You cannot point at that time. Even Franklin Delano Roosevelt was not a radical leftist. At best, he was a progressive, interested in ideas like market socialism, but a damn far sight from an anti-capitalist. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, after all, was born into wealth. Look at them. Look at their flag. Of course they smoke and crack. This is a cigarette, motherfucker. Have you never seen a cigarette being smoked? White lives matters? Then why do you guys care so little about the education of your children and the degradation of your societies? If all you white racists care so much about how us white people are living, which I'm not 100% white, but whatever, leaving that aside, I was raised white. I'm certainly identifiable as white. The fact that I happen to have some exotic ancestry doesn't matter much to this point. Why is it that you guys are willing to accept such utter degradation and deprivation amongst your own communities? Are you really going to blame the black people in Chicago for the deprivation of the trailer parks of West Virginia? Seems like scapegoating to me. Identifies as a Reddit mod. Till a couple months ago, I had negative karma on Reddit. Too much cigarettes, don't you think? Well, let's see. I've been streaming for 30 minutes, and in that time, I've smoked about 1 cigarette. This is how much I got left of this one. I finished up a half one that I had earlier. So, no, not really. Especially considering that before I stepped out here and started the stream, I hadn't smoked in like, 6 or 7 hours probably, maybe even longer. white families have like 17 times the generational wealth of black ones. I wonder if that could have anything to do with the system of chattel slavery and the fact that for a long time, black people were fundamentally barred from a lot of methods of advancement in this society. Think that might have something to do with it? You know, redlining is still going on. I live near a fairly large city. It's not a large city, but a fairly large town where the population is about 45% black. Now you would think, in any other city with population metrics like that, where it's divided almost 50-50, you would think that you'd be able to find people spread out everywhere. And I will say, these days, you can, in greater numbers than at any other point in America's history, for the little town I'm talking about especially, and I've noticed this trend happening for other places, but it's still a prominent issue. Like, if you go to that town, you know what? I don't want to talk about the town I'm talking about, so I'll talk about a less specific town that won't dox me. If you go to a town like Tupelo, Mississippi, Tupelo, I think, has a little bit less black people living in it, maybe 35% if I'm remembering correctly, but it's the same exact way. Despite this pretty broad population distribution, it is not distributed widely across the geography. Black communities to this day, especially in big chunks of the Deep South, the Upper South, and the Midwest, are still functionally segregated, not through explicit policy laid out in some handbook that you can find, but through gentlemen's agreements and understandings between business people, most of them white, who have simply agreed to keep the status quo enacted, despite the fact that it's not actually codified into law. And the way the American justice system, especially our enforcement of civil rights, is set up, it makes it very difficult to prove that something like that is happening, which is one of the reasons why it's been so difficult for people to sue their way out of that situation and to sue to have those kind of policies end. Because a lot of these policies are not written down in some document that was passed by a city council. They're gentlemen's agreements that are maintained at right-wing bars and people's mansions and shit. I think he's actually a politician. 5 minutes of talking and he has said nothing. You are the perfect example of the worst kind of person on the internet. The type of person whose reading and listening comprehension is so bad that they can listen to somebody talk about real issues for 20 minutes now and not be able to pick up on what they're saying. So you perceive it as nothing being said because you're not smart enough to process what's being said, or you don't have a big enough vocabulary to process the words that are being said and to put them into the right context and everything. And as a result, you go around thinking probably everybody that's got an IQ 20 or 30 points higher than your own is spewing bullshit, when the truth of it is you probably just need to read a little bit more. Take a look, it's in a book, The Reading Rainbow. Don't listen to anyone, love yourself. Well, if I don't listen to anyone, I can't listen to you either. So, just saying. He probably got here for 5 seconds ago. Stop assuming. He was here for over 20 minutes. Nobody watching you for over 20 minutes. Okay. All right. So, I got 15,000 subs. Let's go over my watch time. Watch time in the last 28 days. 5,248 watch hours. 5,248 watch hours. Over the last 90 days, 12,517 watch hours. Over the last year, 53,188 watch hours. Let's just see what that is. That is... Okay. Okay, so if you compiled my watch time into one linear series of time, I've been streaming for about a year, but my watch time amounts to about 6 years worth of watching. I just can't help but think that's fascinating. Go away, whatever you are.
Not kidding, I just threw up watching this thing.
Do some more attention seeking in chat. Maybe it'll work next time. What are your pronouns? She, her, hers. It should be illegal people like this take our O2. It should be illegal that people like you are allowed to spew their hateful vitriol online, but we don't always get what we want now, do we? Personally, I think most MAGA people that are still loyal to Trump at this point deserve to be, prosecuted for treason and hanged if found guilty. But I'm probably not going to get that either, so... You want me killed because I sit online and spew leftist talking points. I want many MAGAs to be punished to the fullest extent of the law because they have committed treasonous acts against America and her people. Sure, we're the same. Why are Trump supporters wankers? Because they're the worst people in America. That's literally Trump's whole strategy. And you can hear him talk about this in early interviews, but even still to this day, he says things that are very indicative of this. Donald Trump's base is two different kinds of people. Number one, billionaires and people that are very close to that status. So people that are incredibly wealthy. And number two, the poorest, stupidest, dumbest motherfuckers in America. Literally, and it's those two fucking people, because the less educated you are, the easier it is to get you to subvert your interests in favor of someone else's profit, in favor of someone else's grifting and gain. The dumber you are, the less educated you are, the less capable of critical thinking, the less access to resources you have, the more desperate you are, the more likely you are to fall into the trap of a populist politician like Donald Trump. A fake populist, I should say. Are you incel? Hell no. Huh? I've gotten laid plenty. I've got a lot more respect for women on average than I do for men. I don't know how the fuck you could get incel vibes off of me. What, just because I'm a little ugly means I'm an incel? Dude, most incels aren't even that ugly. They're just shitty people with bad personalities. And you tell them that and they just argue with you, so... I don't know. Sound is really bad? No, it's not.
Sound is really bad?
The sound is no worse than it is any other time. Hi, Amazing Digital Circus. Why are people being so rude? It is not that deep. It's just an opinion. Because we have an incredibly polarized society now, which rewards people pretty richly for encouraging and building on that polarization. And so when people see somebody that's a little bit alternative or a little bit eccentric like me, they are now in a cultural position where they feel like it's a benefit to them to make fun of me and treat me badly and shit. It doesn't really bother me because I use them as content fodder, but that's the mindset, I'm pretty sure. VP bigots have no idea what they're saying. No, I know. I know it. I'm gonna go use the bathroom and get me a drink. I will be right back. I'm drinking Malibu tonight. Ah. You ever just stretch and you feel amazing? Oh, okay. Oh, I almost forgot my cup. road has gone, and I must follow if I can. Alrighty, I'm back, everybody. What's up? What's up? A streamy from Phoebe. Yes. And I feel refreshed AF. Hey, Phoebe, fuck Trump, fuck Elon. Yep. And fuck all of their dumbass, degenerate supporters, too. Fuck everybody still defending them and uncritically defending them in 2026. I guess I've got allowances in my heart for somebody that's like trying to make apologetics, but kind of you can tell they know that they're defending the indefensible. But someone who is actually into this, fuck them. I mean, like, there really is a certain type of person that we're going to just have to stop taking seriously. Now, that doesn't mean they don't get to vote anymore. And that doesn't mean they don't get to have a say in politics. But, like, the idea that we need to take this, like, fifth of the country that's hardcore dedicated to Trump no matter what he does, seriously, in terms of their political advocacy, when you treat them like a serious voting bloc that needs to be accounted for, no. What has that done us but bought us Trump? But in order to make that happen, that means people like all of us that think alike, that are progressives, leftists, liberals of any stripe, we're going to need to become a lot more civically engaged and a lot more engaged in, community level organizing, mutual aid orgs, things like that. It's not a one or the other kind of proposition. But if you really want to disenfranchise MAGA, you're not going to be able to do that with a vote or a policy. But you can do it by forming parallel systems that don't allow people to get so caught up in the partisan hackery, that give people real opportunities to help their own communities and their own land bases. You can do that by encouraging greater and more critical participation in electoral systems in the current frameworks. Politics in general is screwed up. It gets screwed up mainly because of the perverse incentives that start being built upon after greedy, avaricious human beings are allowed to turn things to their benefit. What ultimately needs to be done is the adoption of a worldwide egalitarian anarcho-syndicalist kind of society. I think that starts with a worldwide adoption of market socialist principles that themselves help people build upon this idea of labor being collectivized via taxes and appropriated for different purposes, and things being orchestrated by democratically elected bodies to do the will of the people, for the good of the people. I think that, we really have not made good on many of the promises and theories of the Enlightenment. And the reason we haven't done that is because we've allowed ourselves to become sold out to capital. But we really need to start re-examining these questions that were once so fundamental that a lot of people spent, 200 years discussing these things and what it means for a government to be ethical. And really, socialism, anarcho-syndicalism, these ideas are really just a further evolution on the idea that if a government is going to be elected by the people and is going to serve the good of the people, then that gives it wide purview and latitude to determine what policies through that democratic process are going to be implemented in order to orchestrate a better society. And it becomes a lot easier to organize things at a massive level if you're, like, as far as, like, if you're doing things with input from the community. Easier to do that if you're getting votes regularly. At least we're not in communism. We might be better off. We might be better off if we were. Paul finally unbanned you? What the situation? Paul Ziegler's finally unbanned me. Oh. Yeah, apparently Brett Keane unbanned me because I said something in his chat and my chat didn't get deleted. All I said was, oh shoot, it's Brett. I didn't mean to do that. You don't think some bad apples are going to take advantage of the system too much, though? We already have bad apples taking advantage of the system. Just look at Elon Musk, the biggest welfare baby in the history of humanity. You're basically asking me, do you want to trade a system where you've got a comparatively small number of leeches who basically destroy the world with their leechery? Or do you want a somewhat larger but way, way less oppressive and damaging class of people that are not going to be fully pulling their weight? Yeah, I'm fine with that. More than fine with that. Especially at a time when AI is getting ready to replace 30% of the jobs. It's going to get to the point where the difference between a person who just legitimately was born into society that doesn't have enough work for them, or that grew up into a society that doesn't have enough work for them, that the possibility of that being the status of your life is getting a lot higher. So at some point we are going to need to address and redress this idea of he who does not work does not eat. This is an idea that has been fundamental to the like Puritan work ethic that has dominated American culture and mindset for so long, but it's not tenable in a world where automation is regularly replacing tons of jobs. For every 2 jobs that automation creates, it takes away at least 10. And so we're rapidly approaching a point where it simply is not going to make any logical sense anymore for us to make, like, whether or not you're working a job the basis upon which we divvy up or dole out shelter or food or any of these other things that are currently privileges gatekept behind expenditure. Cannabis is a plant and a drug, kind of like coffee. Ibrahim, I plan on being a Blade Runner. Thank you for the $5. Good luck Blade running. I appreciate the $5. What's up, Dusty the Alien? Did you see the post by Sam Altman detailing they were pausing certain AI development after their Huggy face hugger incidents? Huggy face hugger incident? No. I did not. But I don't believe a word these AI CEOs say, and I don't think anyone else should either. I pretty much think that everything, and maybe you can call me cynical on this, but I can't trust a CEO anymore. I just can't. I can't trust anybody that is at the higher levels or super wealthy about any of these companies, because they all stand to benefit from the things they say. So Sam Altman goes out there and talks about how they're doing a moratorium on further AI development until, until they can resolve these security issues or whatever it is. And, you might see that in good faith and think, and in fact, I think you're supposed to see it in good faith and think, oh, awesome. He's listening to the people and he's taking things seriously. This is huge. But what it really is, in my opinion, is probably just market manipulation. So yeah, his net worth goes down a little bit as the stocks tumble after this negative statement about AI, but that just makes it easier for him to buy up more of it, or even better, for some of his friends that he's informing to buy into it. And eventually, after all is said and done, regardless of whether this project succeeds or fails, Sam Altman gets out of the whole situation with a nice big golden parachute, lots of stock options that he's diversified to a wide variety of different revenue streams, and he doesn't have a thing to worry about for the rest of his life because of the market manipulation he's been able to engage in. And I don't see how that's different for pretty much any CEO out there, unless they're like not a publicly traded company. What do you think about that mother that killed 3 of her children? I think it's horrible that those 3 kids were killed. I don't know that it's been adjudicated in court yet that she actually killed them. But I think it's gross and weird that America is so fucking obsessed with this. And I frankly don't know how people do it. As a mother myself, I can't watch shit like that. I can't listen to testimony about kids dying and the horrible, depraved situations in which they're raised and all these other things. Like that type of content is just anathema to me at this point, and I think it's sickening to me, frankly, that it's become such a dominant cultural trend in this society. I've ultimately got very little problem with somebody that's into true crime, but a lot of people are into it with very little nuance. A lot of people are only into it because it justifies their paranoid fantasies. And it has become such a dominant cultural medium now that tons of people think the crime rate is a lot higher than it actually is because true crime content makes them feel that way. Because if crime is down, then how are there all these stories? Not only that, but it's a slant that many of these creators choose to invoke. Yeah, I mean, if she did it, she should get prison time. If she didn't do it, then they should figure out whoever did do it and prosecute that person. But that's about the extent of my thoughts on it. Like, what am I supposed to have? Like, deeper thoughts on this? Like, I don't know. Personally, I think that there are some situations in which it kind of makes sense within the context of the American justice system to adjudicate somebody, guilty by reason of criminal insanity or not guilty by reason of criminal insanity, basically, where, like, that person gets sentenced to a different type of facility and everything. But the only reason why that is defensible within the American context is because it's within the American context, where we don't have prisons that can easily accommodate people that are not necessarily like hardcore lifelong criminal types. We've basically got two types of facilities in this country. We've got these like inpatient mental health facilities of varying degrees of security that are pretty hard to get into. You pretty much have to be sentenced to one or something. And then we've got prisons, and they're basically horrible dungeons with high technology. They're very little better than that. Maybe some places do it better than others in America. I don't know, but every American prison I've ever interacted with or seen or looked at coverage of, they all pretty much look and work the same. There's two people stuffed into an 8x10 cell with a combination sink and toilet that is all stainless steel with no lid or cover or anything like that. The maintenance of their lives is as bare bones as can be made feasibly possible without the destruction of their health. And even with those allowances, there are still many health issues that arise out of these facilities. You know something, and I know this is random, but there's something that I was just noticing about my own speech patterns. One of the things I've been trying to do recently is try my best, and if I'm able, reduce my usage of words like and these words that are not actually meant to convey meaning, but are rather meant to essentially convey that I am not done speaking, I have more thoughts, but it's taking me a moment to collect them in a way to present them. And that's something I just don't see very often in news coverage that is, before the 1990s, or a lot of interviews before the 1990s and 80s. It's something that seems to be pretty uniquely modern. It makes me feel like it might have something to do with my reduced attention span, being a Gen Z person who's always been as obsessed with social media as pretty much everybody else in my generation. So, I don't know, maybe I need to take my own advice when it comes to getting back into reading. I do read more than the average adult my age, but I haven't been reading as much lately, and I think that probably would help me further achieve that goal of cutting those kind of speech patterns out of my performance, at the very least. You are yapping about nothing, so why are you still sitting here watching? Filler words to make people assume a lower IQ, which is so dumb in my opinion. Same as think cursing, low IQ. What now? Did you become a mom if you're trans? Did you adopt? I was not on hormone replacement therapy long enough to chemically castrate me, basically. So I remained fertile after I got off of hormone replacement therapy. Within a couple of months, my fertility turned to normal levels. As a former Bob Ross mod, I approve of the stream, even if it's more political than when I was over there. What is the name of your cat, by the way? I can do a convincing Brooklyn accent. That's cool. One sec. I'm so sorry about that. I know it was jarring, but that one came over out of nowhere. Anyway, I'm guessing you're meaning like Bob Ross's current channel where he does like well, not he, but I'm assuming his estate does the replays and stuff. That's cool. The stream is definitely more political than anything you'd find over there. But I don't know if I could fairly cite Bob Ross as one of my influences, but he's definitely somebody who has had a profound effect on the way I see things, and even in some of the ways that I talk about nature. And so I don't know. I don't know how to exactly to quantify it, but that's cool. Let me see here. I've got a membership message. I'm in a situation with a cat, and we got some, I gotta get me some situation. Wait, what? Manatee 890? I'm in a situa with a cat, arn me, I gotta get some situation. I tried to do the manatee voice. I'm a Dragon Ball in a situation. Oh, now I get it. Situation. Also, try writing even just fanfiction. You'll get better at organizing your thoughts and getting your point across. Oh, that's the thing. I feel like I must be already fairly decent at doing that, but I do want to get better at it. But I used to write fan fiction like a motherfucker, and probably the only reason why I'm as articulate as I am now, to the degree which I am articulate, I don't know if everyone would agree with that assessment, but to the degree to which that is true, I think it is largely because I spent so much of my teenage years writing fan fiction and shit like that. These days, I've got other things that I'm working on writing, but it is definitely still a medium that I'm very interested in doing, especially because, now that I do YouTube for a living, there's a real opportunity for me to include writing as part of my repertoire. I can, now I can write scripts and perform them. Never gonna happen, Matt. Never going to happen. Also, try writing... I already read that. Thank you, Ibrahim, for the $5. I appreciate that a ton. The Manatee, $8.90. Thank you for the $4.99. I appreciate that a bunch. The Manatee. Phoebe Ophi, you sound similar to someone who called into the Drunken Peasants in 2014. Was that you? No. In 2014, I wouldn't have been watching the Drunken Peasants yet, I don't think. I would have been 16, so I guess not beyond the realm of possibility, but I believe I was watching TJ at that point, but that was a little bit before I started watching DP proper. I don't think I started watching DP proper until 2015, so, no. I never called into DP's show either. I called into DPP back then? Oh, damn. Manatee's an even more OG fan than I am, I guess. The Ohio Winter Storm episode? Oh, damn. Nice. That's not the real G-Man, is it? No. No, that's the DP fan G-Man with a name that is just based off of G-Man's name. It wasn't the first show with call-ins, but it was like the 4th or 5th. Well, yeah, I mean, that's kind of one of the reasons why I want to pitch Ben on this idea of, like, I don't know, like, if you think it'd be worth it, why don't we have, like, an episode a week for a while, or, like, 2 episodes every other week or something, where you bring me on, and, like, you don't even have to get, like, emotionally invested in this bullshit, basically. And you can kind of fill the role of the irreverent color commentator while I'll take the heat of the debate and the worrying about modern news and shit. And we could do, like, some of that old school DP style shit that is becoming more popular on YouTube again. It's one of the most dominant forms of live streamed content right now. Is call-in shows, debate shows, news shows. I didn't stick around when the Kirks left. At first I didn't either, but then eventually I started going back to it, and I was like, okay, all right, this is different, but it's all right. And some episodes were better to me than others, but at this point, I would say I watch DP fairly regularly because I do kind of like the dynamic between Shabisky and Ben, and Brett Keane. There's something evergreen to me about commentary and making fun of him, so that I think keeps me around, and just the fact that it's a podcast I got a lot of history with in a lot of ways. I've been watching it for over 10 years at this point, and I feel like it'd be weird to stop completely. Forehead reveal, these bangs are not as long as you think they are. Ew, you're fucking gross. What are you smoking? Wouldn't you like to know, weather boy? Women with bangs are cute. Thanks. I like to think we are as well. I used to have a friendly, pity-like view of Brett until he started talking reprehensible shit about Pimp and his mama. I never had that viewpoint about Brett Keane. Even from the early days, I didn't like the fact that he flip-flopped all the time and that he seemed completely inconsistent. But the thing that made me, in my mind, go from like, oh, affable fuckwit to, oh, this guy's actually, like, dangerous, was when he gave the drunken peasant's address to Joseph Martelli. That shit was inexcusable, reprehensible, dangerous, like, actually, like, security-wise dangerous. Now, Martelli didn't end up ever doing nothing, but, man, who the fuck knows, though? Who the fuck knows? They could have gotten doxxed after that because Martelli chose to fucking share with other people. But fucking goddamn piece of shit Brett Keane didn't care about that. What he cared about was possibly getting one over on his internet enemies. And I have considered him fair game since then. Play a song on guitar for $20 or more on Cash App. You guys are more than welcome to request a song, or I will just play you some songs in general. I always play more than just one, but yeah, that's the goal limit, is $20 or more on Cash App to get some guitar music. And it can be like from multiple different people. I'll call them all out as they happen. Do you plan on showering today? I typically do every day, especially in the summer. Sometimes it's like twice a week in the winter when there's like nothing going on and I'm not getting sweaty. And, at the end of the day, I pretty much smell like I did at the beginning of the day. Then kind of seems pointless to waste the water on showering when it's like, I've barely been outside today. Even when I did go outside, I didn't sweat. What would be the point? Especially because I don't really get out that much. But a lot of times, like, in a situation like that where it's winter and I haven't showered in a few days, but I want to, like, go out and do something, then I'll go ahead and, like, hop in the shower before I do that. But in the summer, it's, like, too hot and humid to get away with anything but once a day. Sometimes you gotta do it twice a day. Do I support what? Do I support what? Why does this feel like clip chimping? You guys smell that? Smells like monkey. I said some clip chimping. Oh no! What have I done? Oh my god. I'm so clumsy. Oh my god, that's so funny. Oh god, okay. So, ya girl just dropped my lighter. I just dropped my lighter into the candle that I was burning, and I was like, what do I do? I can't just grab it with my hands, because then I'm not going to get my hands clean. So I was like, okay, next best thing I could do is grab a thin piece of plastic. I'll just kind of like, boop, and dab it out of there. So I got it out of there, and now it's cooling on the floor. Hopefully with the wax layer cooling around it. And hopefully I'll be able to keep using that lighter. Luckily I have another one, but I probably just ruined that lighter. That's a clip. Is it? It's funny that I was literally talking about clip chimping and then I did something super clippable. It's just hard because I don't want to get too close to it, because what if it fucking, you know, like what if it burns me? What if I touch the, like, grease or whatever, the wax? Do I grab it and burn my hands or hope that the fire doesn't make it explode? Well, the fire had gone out in the candle. I was trying to relight the fire in the candle, so that's why, like, I wasn't super worried about it. But what I was worried about was the heat of the wax causing, you know, like a pressurization change, basically. I'm sure these lighters are designed with pressure relief valves on them, but I'll be honest with you. I don't know where it could possibly be at. I'm sure it's incorporated into the design somewhere. But they also say explicitly not to throw these around fires and shit like that. So I'm like, what if it gets too hot and it explodes? So that's why I had to get it out of there immediately. Because I was like, you know, what if it does that? Oh my god, y'all. This lighter is encased in wax. This lighter is literally encased in wax. I'm afraid to grab it right yet, because I'm afraid it'll smear all over my hands. But it's like encased in candle wax now. Like, it's gonna fossilize, you guys. I might just, like, bury this lighter somewhere out, you know, in the environment. Like a good environmentalist, really. And see if I can get it to fossilize. Because it's encased in wax already. So it's already got, like, that nice protective layer over it. The best part is peeling it off. What if I try and fossilize it for science? I start it right now, then when I'm 50, I, like, check back up on it. See how it's doing. What if I unburied it and it was, like, in the exact state of preservation in which I buried it? That'd be crazy. Tss, go away. You're gonna knock stuff over being over here. It's gonna be still all oily. Look at what I got. Oh, there he goes. When was the last time you see the sun? Motherfucker. I'm not as pale as my fucking set lights make me look, okay? You realize I've got the equivalent of a third of a sun burning in here? Okay? Like, shut up, bro. I've got the sun shining through a light bulb in my room. Yes, it's going to make me look like a vampire. I'm sorry. It's one of the, you know, bugs about being white, is that in set lighting without extensive makeup, you kind of look a little vampiric. And I don't know if every part of me looks as pale too. I wonder if I could make the definition. Oh, yeah, there you go. Yeah, so if you want to see like how pale I actually am, like this is where like my armpit region is that never actually sees any sun. But you can tell the part that does see sun. Like you can see a clear dividing line there. Phoebe, can you give your best Alex Jones impression? Sure. If somebody will donate $5 to tell me what I should say, I'll do it. But I gotta use the bathroom first. Okay. All right, the Patrick Gwelly, 280, with 9.99. All right, bet. Thank you for the $10. Let me see if I can do it. I popped like a balloon, and now I'm in hell. Tim Heidecker came down here to kick my butt, and he's kicking me hard. And I tell you, folks, I've never seen something quite like this. I never thought it'd come to this. My beautiful website, my beautiful network, folks, taken down by an evil, globalist piece of dog shit like Tim Heidecker. But here it has come to this. Here at the end of all things, folks, as Donald Trump betrays us, America first, folks. Thank you for the $10. I appreciate it. He even took my car that I popped in. Everything I've done, Tim Heidecker's got a slice of that pie now. Think about how evil that is. I have been speaking out about what would he say? I have been speaking out about the globalists and the Illuminati for 30 years now, and this is how things turn out. They've taken my network. They've taken my car. Pretty soon, they'll be taking my kids. I'll be lucky if they don't take the whiskey out of my hands. Can I just admit something? Alex Jones is by far my favorite impression to do. Because honestly, the Alex Jones impression is not that unique. Alex Jones bases his performance caricature, like the character that he plays on shows, on old westerns. And like there's other influences in there too. A little bit of Rush Limbaugh, a little bit of Southern evangelical. There's different influences that you can notice throughout there, but like it's pretty easy to modern that. You just like place yourself in the mindset of Alex Jones, and then keep in mind part of what you're trying to invoke is a Texas cowboy. Well, one of his settlements just got reduced. One of his things, like, he was ordered to pay like $50 million on account of the Sandy Hook lies, I think, and that's been reduced to $1.5 million. So it's becoming more and more payable by the day. They're turning the freaking frogs gay. They're putting fluoride in the water. It's got adverse effects on the sexuality and the sexual genesis of frogs. If it's having those kind of effects on frogs, what do you think it's doing to us, folks? When did you change your name, Manatee? Oh, okay. It's you. I thought you stopped watching, Patrick. Dude, I didn't know the Manatee was you. This whole time, the Manatee character has just been a project of Patrick McElrath? Dude. I did not know that the Manatee character, as appearing on DFF chats and my chat, was a project of the comic mind of Patrick. I switched like the Wu-Tang symbol. Haha. Still, that's cool. He played with his assets enough to where they can't touch a lot of it, but he paid by Bitcoin to bring supporters to January 6th in Bitcoin along with Nick Fuentes. Who? Oh, Alex Jones? Yeah. Probably true, honestly. I rewatched old DP, and I think it's cool how hard Paul goes in on the initial alt-right Chud cancer cells. Like him debating Milo, Sargon, and mocking the Trumpers and the Kekistanis. Well, that's one of the reasons why I'm such an ardent Paul supporter. That's one of the reasons why people call me a Paul simp and shit, because Paul is one of the only leftist YouTube creators I can think of who's got the pedigree that he has when it comes to debating alt-right morons and opposing both, like, you know, like the crazier elements of the SJW craze and the rising alt-right phenomenon with, like, equal nuance and fervor, and a lot more fervor, in fact, for the alt-right phenomenon, which was obviously a much greater danger. And he said as much a lot of times in old DP. Like, you know, these feminists and SJWs, I mean, like, they're for the most part pretty powerless and just kind of annoying. These, like, alt-right chuds are actually getting an audience with the president and shit. And he was saying that shit all the way back in 2016. Vosh wasn't saying that back in 2016. Vosh wasn't even making content back then. Destiny wasn't saying that back in 2016. That's not what his content was about back then. There are lots of people that are now making leftist content that didn't have the right take back then. And there were very few people who did. Thanks for streaming, Phoebes. I appreciate you. Yeah, of course. I appreciate all of you guys who watch and sit around enjoying these. Send me 3,000? No. Mitch McConnell, Alex Jones is the funniest by far impression. Mitch McConnell, Alex Jones? What now? I honestly don't have a good Mitch McConnell. Because I feel like it's just like old Southern man. But how do I make that distinctive? I don't know. I really don't know. They're rolling deep with the pink / pride washing Zio Nation. Oh, yeah. It's been one of Israel's strategies for a long time. Oh, my God. Well, my lighter's cooked. It's like 89 days and still no Mitch McConnell, and there will be none forthcoming. We may as well have been promised Mitch McConnell's return to the Senate 3,000 years ago. The wax lighter, effectively waterproof. Save that one for if he gets stranded in the woods. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I could see if that works. But what if it just sets the whole lighter on fire? That seems like the more likely scenario. Is that like a modified pride flag behind you? Yeah, it's the one that came out in 2020. Weekend at Bernie's. I think it's actually got a more complicated name, but I'm not sure. I don't remember exactly what it is off the top of my head. Oh yeah, you said you were in The Voice. Yeah, I guess we can voice. What's your problem?
What's the problem?
Robert.
No.
Robert.
No, Marcus. Don't do this to me, Marcus.
Robert. We're going to Tokyo.
It's in Tokyo.
Come, Robert. We are in Tokyo.
Itadakimasu.
Stop making fun of my friends.
All right, baby.
You are a Nazi, Robert.
Jesus. So, Phoebe, what kind of fan fiction did you write?
Jesus is a faggot, Robert.
Give me a topic. You don't have to say what it was that you wrote, but I want to.
I wrote video game fan fiction with extensive self-inserts. Not as cringy as Chris Chan's bullshit, written at a way higher degree of proficiency than that, but cringy by virtue of the kind of things that I would make my self-inserts do. Hormonal teenager type shit. Some of my fan fictions bordered on erotica at times, but I was always able to kind of like skirt that and figure out how to imply without saying, oh my god. Huh?
It's pretty softcore. It said it's pretty softcore, basically.
It was nothing like crazy. It's just like it's cringy, and there's like real life names that have been reused in some of those, I think. So I don't remember if that's the case, but it's just not something I want to fuck with, Honestly, it's one of those things that if I could erase it from the internet, I would, because it's such a bad example of my creativity, even if it didn't have, And I don't remember if it does have any actually personally identifying information. It's just like, Taylor has talked about how it'd be too revealing, and I kind of agree with her, and I haven't looked at it a long time. I don't even know if the original website I posted it at still exists.
I've never wrote fan fiction, ever.
I think for a lot of kids that are like, are you into writing in general?
I have a lot of thoughts about a lot of things.
But you don't like write as a hobby.
No, I don't.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. A lot of kids that, there are some people that just have a knack for it, that want to write, that love reading, that love writing, and want to express themselves in that way. And I was one of those people, and I remain one of those people. And so I think fan fictions are like one of the first ways that a young person kind of learns to relate through fiction writing to their world, because it gives you all of these ready-made characters. It gives you story constraints. It gives you the ability to explore the limits of an already made world and to extrapolate on the known facts and stuff like that. And that can be a lot more approachable than trying to conceive your own worlds from scratch. Now, eventually, like, there are a lot of fan fiction writers who do eventually go on to become, especially in the last 20 years, there have been a ton of fan fiction writers. Obviously, everybody talks about Stephanie Meyers, but there have been tons of them who have come out in the last 20 years who've been fan fiction writers at some point in their past, that, like, that's what got them started on the idea of world building and stuff. Because a lot of times you write a fan fiction about something that has enough world building to get you started, but like, there's a reason why there's so much, Zelda fan fiction, and there's not as much, like, Skyrim fan fiction. Because, like, if you're going to write a Skyrim fan fiction, you either need to be willing to do some MacGuffins to make for it to not need to be tied into one of the existing timelines, but still reliant on previous facts, or you need to do a bunch of fucking research and be extensively knowledgeable in order to not come up with like contradictions of the canon and stuff like that. It provides so much of its own lore that there's not that much to extrapolate on. But with Zelda, there's a framework of a like religion and a spirituality kind of established. There's lots of lore that's available to you, but there's tons and tons and tons that is left unexplained or only hinted at, and it's very much a series that kind of encourages you to think and kind of make your own answers up for why things are this way or what's going on in the background or whatever. And so I think that that's why some people gravitate to it, is because it gives them the opportunity to extrapolate on an already built world that provides them with a shortcut to a lot of the most difficult parts of world building, which is deciding what are the limits of your reality.
Yeah, I've always wanted to write, but I'm very much in my head, whereas, like, I daydream a lot about situations, about, like, concepts. But I recognize in myself that I do not have the knowledge to actually, like, proper grammar, the structure of a story, stuff like that. Stuff you just learn through practice, and stuff like that I just don't have, because I don't really read a lot of books, and I don't really write a lot, so I don't really have a base for it, even though I want to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get that.
Like, I have, like, I think I've laid out the outline of 3 or 4 books, and I've written the key points to them, kind of like generally what's going to happen, how it happens, but as far as like actually writing it out, I haven't done.
Yeah, that creativity paralysis, I think is pretty common to most people that are genuinely fascinated and interested in creative work. I don't know. It's something some people seem to be able to get around pretty easily. Sometimes you're able to get around it in other ways and find other outlets. Like for me, there's things I know I need to be working on that I want to be working on, but I kind of have that like lock up, and I'm like, oh God, where do I go? What do I do? Oh, am I doing it right? And so I'm just like doing other things instead. But like eventually you might think about it enough to where you're like, man, I just have to try. And there's no reason why you couldn't try. I mean, like, here's the thing. It's very hard for me to tell if someone would be a good writer just based on, like, the way they type and everything. But the way you think about concepts makes me think that you've got a creative's mind at the very least.
Well, I do a lot of Photoshop stuff, and so I've always been like drawing and creative in that way.
You're a visual artist.
Sure, but I've always wanted to like write because I feel like I have so much in my head, but I don't know how to put it on paper. So one of my stories that I've written like 4 books, the outlines of 4 books, storyboarded basically, is about, the title's called Pecker, Pecker, like a woodpecker. And what it's about is it's about a man who moves his family to a different country. And he's, what do you call those people that are basically, they represent their country in a different country?
And like, I'm not like a diplomat?
Yeah, he's a diplomat. He's a United States diplomat, moved to a different country, brings his family, and through some sort of process, he has his family, or they try to assassinate him and his family. They miss him, and they kill his family. His house is on fire, so he runs back in to try to save his family. And so his doorknobs are metal, and they have like a woodpecker on them. And basically, he gets a burn of a woodpecker on his palm. And that's why it's called Pecker.
So, then what happens?
Then, through a lot of different processes, he basically tries to find out who killed his family. Yeah, he basically has his face changed through plastic surgery. And this is kind of like one of those spy type movies, mystery cliche novels where, he tries to infiltrate the organization that assassinated his family by becoming one of them, to get knowledge and information on who pulled the strings and who asked for the assassination. And every time, at the end of the book, every time he feels like he's getting closer to finding out who's the one who ordered it, it's always somebody else. And that's when the next book starts, and it's always somebody else, and that's when the next book starts. And so at the end of the series, he finally finds the person who ordered the assassination.
Alright. Interesting.
Yeah, I know, it's cliche, I get it, but
it does remind me a lot of John Wick, but, some different elements.
No, because I thought he knows who did it, but people keep fucking with him, so he keeps getting back into it. I thought that was the whole thing about John Wick.
Well, yeah, but it's still, like, really the story narrative behind John Wick is, this dude who's involved in a dangerous life, having to get back into the dangerous aspect of that life, due to an intervention from a criminal organization.
Well, it's more like a stupid kid in that organization that kills his dog and takes his car, but yeah.
True.
And it's not like he would have gotten out after the kid was dead, but they kept going after him, and then and then they drew him back in to that life. Also, I have these written before even John Wick was a thing.
Okay, I'm not saying you copied it. I'm just saying, I think maybe, like, you should add some, like, aliens or something.
No aliens, just a lot of, like, like high fantasy mystery.
What about an Isaac Plumbo
bullshit.
cameo?
Do you think Pecker's still on the nose for his name of the book, Pecker?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I don't know how easy that'll go through publishing, but maybe. I feel like it's gotta have some, this feels like the fact that it's named Pecker and the woodpecker analogy and everything, you've got an opportunity here to do some, like, deeper social analysis along with all this action bullshit. And that's what I would want to see out of a film or a novel or a series that followed this story structure. I would want to see some kind of commentary beyond just, cool, heroic dude tries to save his family, fucking,
It's not bad. I mean, yes, it starts with that, but he does some depraved shit. He actually does assassinations.
But what I'm saying is that there's a dozens of films, books, series, miniseries that have that basic story structure. If you strip all the broader context out of it,
Sure.
And what I think is missing from the modern kind of landscape of both literature and film is movies that take their time to kind of like do some additional commentary. Now I don't know, because I don't know where your mind is at with this idea, but I'm sure if I really racked my brain about it, I could think of some ways to interpolate the metaphor of the penis, like the phallic metaphor with...
Oh, I wasn't thinking that much when I was a kid. I was just thinking, ooh, cool.
I know, but now that you're an adult, though, you've got an opportunity to add nuance to this that could... And it's not like there's got to be sex scenes or that it's even got to have that as an implicit thing. But it can be something as simple as like, And notice how there's like a lot of things that are kind of phallic in nature in this film. A lot of B-roll that features these like isolated, tall buildings next to a bunch of other shorter buildings. What's with that?
So you want me to put like a bunch of references to a phallus?
No, not exactly. Not just for its own sake. I'm saying that you've got the opportunity here to, like, a woodpecker is already something that many different cultures have come up with different interpretations of its meaning and everything. Like the phallus is something that has dozens of different meanings that can be attributed to it or divulged with its usage as a metaphor. So what I guess I'm saying is...
how would I like put manhood and like what's it mean to be a man and the fact that we live in like a male-dominated society?
Exactly. I feel like you've got a real opportunity to comment. Yes, exactly. You've got a real opportunity to comment on patriarchy, especially if you plan on having this character do depraved shit. You've got a real opportunity to comment on patriarchy and toxic masculinity and the ways in which it kind of skews people's morality and justifies atrocities and all this other stuff. And the not just the title, but the phallic metaphor that is kind of invoked by it, and the kind of phallic metaphor that is invoked by a woodpecker itself, but also the many different spiritual and metaphorical connotations that woodpeckers have in their own right, I think makes for a really ripe opportunity for a compelling work of action with social commentary underlying it.
Right. I was thinking more like, a woodpecker, they take their time. They don't stop until they get the grub. They keep going.
Right, but what else does a woodpecker do? How do they get the grub? They drive their shaft back and forth into a little hole.
Sure.
They drive a long shaft back and forth into a little hole, right? They penetrate the bark and phloem of a tree in order to get the grubs inside.
See, this is where the whole, writer thing comes from, because I don't know how I would, subconsciously put that image or messaging into a book without just outright saying, "Oh yeah, this is what I'm doing."
I can imagine some ways.
Well, I'm sure you can.
Yeah, you've got like the title, but then you've also got, say you've got a scene somewhere towards the beginning when the family is still alive. They've just moved to a new country, wherever that country is, and they're sitting out. Dad, this character, is sitting out on the porch or whatever, sitting out on the lawn.
They're all inside the house. It's nighttime. They're sleeping, and someone sets it on fire.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying, like, you probably don't want it to begin with that. You probably want to have some setup. Like, why do you care about some rich people?
The setup is like them, talking, and then they're on the airport, and then they're in the new country, and then they're in the new house.
Exactly. Oh, but let me say, like, before the fire happens, maybe there's a scene where, because you're wondering how you, show it, don't tell it, right? So maybe there's a scene after they've moved into the new house, they're getting settled in, and Dad is sitting out on the porch, or whatever the equivalent is for whatever country they're in, lawn or whatever, garden, whatever it may be, and hears the sound of a woodpecker. Or, maybe here's the sound of a woodpecker, and then, if it were a screenplay, you would have the camera pan to, kind of like put it to soft, not soft focus, but put it to where it's in focus along with, Dad sitting on the porch, and if it's a novel, you've got...
Better yet, there's a woodpecker in the background of the whole movie, and it's just very subtle, you barely hear it. You don't even notice it over time because you're just so used to it.
Maybe, but I feel like that would get a little weird to people. People would definitely notice that. Woodpeckers are very distinctive in noise. They'd have to be very quiet to the point where almost nobody would notice it. But
exactly, yeah.
It would also be like, I feel like too on the nose. Basically, what I'm saying is if you wanted to invoke some metaphors like this, the key point is not to say, in fact, it cheapens it if you say that that's what you're doing openly, like if you have characters narrativize that or whatever. The better thing to do is to give the viewer or the reader the opportunity to come up with that conclusion on their own. If they watch it with a critical eye, they start to realize, there's quite a few like weird kind of phallic references in this novel. There's this woodpecker that keeps showing up at multiple times in it. And then there's like these characters that are increasingly reacting in more and more desperate and human ways to the increased depravity of this person who is on what is to him a morally righteous cause. But what may be viewed by any viewer or reader as, he may be viewed as a hero or an anti-hero, depending on how depraved the things you happen to get up to are, depending on how adjacent to the conflict the people that get involved in it are, depending on the scope of destruction, right? That's the whole reason why there are moral debates about people like Batman and shit, is because he's designed as kind of an anti-hero, someone that you can criticize as well as praise. And it is in these finer nuances that the beauty of literature shows its truest colors.
I wonder if maybe, like you said, maybe I'm more visual, and maybe, there's people who are really good at writing books, and there's people who are really good at writing screenplays.
Yeah, true. And although I would say that writing books and screenplays are probably closer in adjacency than any form of writing and like painting, for example.
Like, you don't always need a book to write a really great screenplay.
No, of course not.
I would say the majority of really great screenplays are adapted from books.
Right. But I would say so too. And the reason why that is because they involve similar skill sets. You can't do B-roll in a novel, but what you do instead is you get to a certain point, your characters are getting into this new place, and then you just start describing it. Like that's the Tolkien method, and that's George R.R. Martin does it too. There's a number of different authors that have done this. Robert Jordan, and you get to a point where in a normal movie, maybe there would be some B-roll, some like drone footage, some stuff like that. Now you instead get a broad description of these landscapes. And it's very easy to translate that into, a sweeping shot of this landscape appears at this point in the screenplay or whatever. It's very easy to translate those two things. Because, you just have to do them in different ways. In text format, the words have to lay out the picture in your mind. But when you've got the ability to film things, obviously you get a lot more opportunities.
Right. Oh no, I have a lot of little things like that. That just never came to fruition because I just don't know how to do it. Nah, I have a lot of thoughts about a lot of things, That Good Mythical Morning song. I got a lot of thoughts about a lot of things.
I feel that. I don't know how much longer I'll be able to stay on.
Stay as long as you can. Leave when you got to.
Ugh. I bought my train tickets.
Little mass bad news.
No, we don't have enough time for it. Like I said, I'm gonna probably have to get off here in the next 10 minutes. We can do it tomorrow, though.
Tomorrow.
But yeah, I bought my train tickets.
Yeah, I heard you say it on the DFS. Yeah.
Hell yeah. I'm gonna be spending fucking 6 days in coach on Amtrak.
That's 3 days combined, back and forth, right?
No, 3 days there, 3 days back.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, combined total is 6 days.
Man, EJ's too used to luxury, I swear. He can't even,
I know! That's what I was thinking.
Train or something.
Well, that's what I was thinking when he said that, and I was also thinking, dude, has TJ taken, interstate Amtrak? Because, from what I can tell, even when I'm looking at reviewers who aren't big fans of it because they've been on so many European services and stuff, they're always talking about how, you know what? It's not fast, but it is fun. And...
yeah, I mean, you get to see so much shit along the way, the whole romance of it all. I mean, I always think of, romantic stuff when I think of trains, and because you never know what's going to happen when you get on a train.
No, yeah, that's the thing, it does kind of have a weird... Huh?
You don't know who you're going to meet, or who you're going to talk to, or you're going to see, no?
I mean, I'm going to be hanging out with Kenny. We're, doing an Airbnb together, but,
Nice.
Also Ignar. Ignar's going to the meetup, but me and Ignar are also going to be hanging out. So that's going to be pretty cool. I don't know who else. I mean, it would be nice if I could, find some cool femme friends up in, that area. To, also, have some, different opportunities to hang out with, different types of people and shit, but I don't know. We'll see what happens.
I mean, how wild would it be if you found somebody on the train and you exchanged numbers and that became something?
I know, right? Wouldn't that be crazy? Long distance relationship, born on the train that eventually becomes something real.
Or shit, what if they were coming from the same place you came from and they're not too far away?
Seems unlikely, but maybe. Yeah, what if I met a fellow DFF fan that just doesn't really pay that much attention to the chats and shit, but is going to the Seattle meetup, and it turns out they're from the same area as I am? That'd be funny. Then we meet on the train, we end up sharing seats next to each other because we're oh, this is so much better.
Right? But you just end up chatting the whole time?
Yep. they can be in the documentary with me.
Yeah. See, that's what I mean. I'm a hopeless romantic when it comes to things like that. I'm always like thinking.
Oh, me too. But I don't get my hopes up for shit like that anymore. I leave myself open to those possibilities, but I don't get my hopes up for that shit.
Yeah. For sure.
Can't wait to get inside and finish my Sonic.
Oh, that's what this is about.
No, I mean, it's also really fucking, I don't know, I haven't slept that much in the last week.
It's not a big deal.
Well, yeah, but I've got adult responsibilities, bruh.
Oh, yeah, I get that.
You know?
Yeah.
I know. It sucks. Trust me, I know. And, the thing that was supposed to happen still hasn't happened yet. So...
Oh, yeah.
All this, change to my schedule is feeling increasingly more pointless, but... Whatever.
Oh, boy.
Whatever.
Go on for longer than you think, I assume.
Well, not exactly. I'll tell you more about it after I get off stream. But,
Yeah.
suffice it to say, all this change to my schedule and expenditure is seemingly increasingly more absurd by the hour.
Oh, no, baby.
Told you that you need to sleep. Yeah, Ibrahim's right. That's another thing. I haven't slept much over the last week. I've been oh, we're halfway there. Oh, living on a prayer. I've been dead.
If I don't get 8 to 10, I just don't function.
I can function on a lot less than that, but eventually I just run into a wall and my body's you're dying.
You're just gonna die if you don't go to sleep right now.
Exactly.
I'm dying, Robert.
Can you speak Daisy song? No. I don't know what that means. Can I speak Daisy song? What? What about you, Matt? You got any idea what that means?
I barely heard it because I'm trained into it.
Yeah, rude ass train. Ban trains. What?
Do you think train urban psychosis is a real thing?
Yes.
Where people just become sociopathic and murderers because a train keeps them alive forever?
Not exactly, but maybe.
When train stations are going to pay for murderers shortage?
What?
Oh, I said what train stations are going to pay for my murder shortage?
Yeah, exactly. You know how to sing Daisy Bell or no? No, I don't.
Is that the song?
You got me.
I don't have the horse and carriage. People be rude. They just say assume you should know something.
Take me out to the ball game in this massive train. Oh my god, dude. Dude, there for a while, trains were not that common, but for the last few weeks, dude, not only have trains been picking up, but, man, this is the second or third train that's passed by just tonight that's had a midway engine running at full throttle.
So they got like a mile-long train.
Yeah. Just goes into what I was saying the other day, you know, like, it would not take very much for, like, in my opinion, the biggest unsaid national emergency or national security risk in America is just, like, our reliance on so few transcontinental railroad lines. There's only, like, 3 or 4 meaningful corridors. There obviously could be more, but it'd be a massive expenditure, and we don't build anything anymore. So, it feels like another sign of collapse of the empire.
We just let our infrastructure dilapidate.
Yep. Yep. Dude, we don't build more for redundancy's sake. And it's just hard to get anything built in fucking America these days. It's one of those weird things where I kind of think the libertarians are right, and I just don't know exactly what the answer is. And I wish I had a better answer. Where it's like,
I think,
well, let me explain what I mean. Regulations are necessary to ensure a safe and just society that, you know, isn't fucking people over for no reason and prioritizing profit over people to the point where they're housing them in slums. But I also feel like the regulatory environment in this country and in many states is so bureaucratically bloated and takes so fucking long at this point that it does meaningfully stifle the rehabilitation of older buildings, the building of new ones, shit like that. And in some places it's worse than others, but it just seems to be kind of like a nationwide problem. Because we're the richest country on the planet. Like, we should, by all metrics, there should be all kinds of shit being built all over America. You shouldn't be able to drive through a city without seeing a massive infrastructure project or a big building going up or something. Like, the fact that that's not happening tells me that not only the fact that that's not happening, but how much I hear people talk about it from both sides of the aisle and independents makes me think that it, like, actually is a real issue. I just don't know exactly how you how you approach it. I mean, I feel like you could.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, specifically for railroads, I feel like specifically after, you know, the start of the New World, you know, where land wasn't really owned by many people, getting the first set of railroads down was a lot easier because you didn't have to pay people and you didn't have to, take their property from under them stuff for the majority.
Well, we were taking people's property out from under them. It was just people that were a lot easier to exploit because we didn't recognize them with legal contracts.
Well, yes, clearly, but you know what I mean.
Well, yeah, I know, but it's important to point that out, right? Because that's why I think there is such a nuanced conversation to be had around this, because we're trying, like, one of the reasons why so many of these things exist is because we try to do things a little better nowadays. So the idea of just, manifest destiny style declaring that this corridor is, like, this planned corridor is now, like, specifically reserved for the United States federal government for the purpose of building in coalition with this state and the surrounding states a high-speed rail network, like, that doesn't work these days because we've established legal precedents by which people have to be paid a certain amount for their land and where they can contest this in court and shit like that. but even if you get past the eminent domain claims and all that, which might be fairly easy for a lot of the empty parts of the country, there's plenty of farmers, especially like Republican farmers and shit, that might be quite willing to sell off little bits of their land for lucrative prices. But,
yeah, but those people that say that, like, this is my grandpappy's land, and his daddy's land, and my daddy's land, and I ain't giving it up to no one. You're gonna have to take it from me.
nah, people say that shit, but that's mostly like a ploy to get a little bit more money out of the system. A lot of these people, if they're just losing like 250 feet of like arable land, basically, it's not even like a full acre or anything. It's just like they're, losing this. It's encroaching a little bit more on it. I think that they would take the land purchase deal. They would hold it up in court for a little while, but I think it'd be a lot easier than these people that own vast swaths of land that are just going to be cut off completely.
But then you get in a situation that you have now where you're living ass to ass with a train track.
Right, but we're not talking about that, right? You understand that in the have you ever driven through the Midwest?
No.
Oh my god, that explains so much. That explains why you're talking like this. Okay, yeah. So let me explain something. The kind of places I'm thinking, and where like the U.S. Policymakers that have thought about this have talked about placing high-speed rail are along corridors that are like along interstates and stuff like that, where there's already basically nothing until you get near cities, and huge swaths east of land east of the Rocky Mountains, and like south of the Canadian border, and like north of Mexico, and like west of the Appalachians. That whole pocket is full of vast swaths of interstate where nobody lives right next to the interstate. Almost nobody. There's sometimes exceptions to this, but it's very rare. And in such cases, the high-speed rail could just go over the highway and switch to the other side where there's usually nothing at. But for the most part, we're talking about places where nobody lives near these places anyway. The people that own land here own thousands of acres. Sometimes they own land on both sides of the interstate.
Is that just because it's cheaper in the South?
Huh?
Is that just because it's cheaper in the South to buy land?
It's because a lot of these like farming families and stuff in the Midwest and the South have been owning land and buying more land whenever there's a good year for 100 years. So that's basically what it is. Like, that's like if you talk about like the breadbasket of America and all these places where so much agriculture happens, that is like massive grain-based agriculture. A lot of it's people that have been farming for 100, 150, 200 years in some cases, that have grown their holdings from 150 acres to 300 acres to 800 acres to 1,500 acres to 3,000 acres to 10,000 acres to 500,000 acres or some shit. There are farmers in this country that own an amount of land that would make you fucking like vomit. And they don't farm most of it themselves. They might do some work on the farm and shit, but most of that work is getting done by an extensive team of farmhands and shit, because it's just too much land for one person to work themselves, even with automation and shit. So
I see.
In cases like that, I think that those people would be more than willing to sacrifice a measly little 250 feet along an interstate worth of easement to the federal government and the state, with the purchase of that land, basically, in order to like facilitate the building of high-speed rail, which is something that would help them just as much as it's going to help anybody else, because it's going to help the American economy. It's going to make a better market for the products that they make.
Gotcha. Oh boy.
Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get off here, guys. Thank y'all for hanging out in the stream. I appreciate y'all, and I like you too, Cyan. You're cool. But yeah, I appreciate y'all. I will see y'all later. Peace out.
Bye-bye.